I want to thank the Chair and Ranking Member for their tireless work, especially to bring forward this improved Taylor Force Act. This bill will help end the horrible practice where Palestinian Authority pays salaries to terrorists and their families, more money for worse crimes, unambiguously incentivizing terrorism against civilians. Beginning in late 2015, Israel faced a new wave of violence, what was often called lone wolf or knife intifada. Instead of coordinated near-daily bombings in cafes, nightclubs, and on public buses, as happened earlier in the 2000s, we instead saw deadly stabbings, shootings, and car rammings on a regular basis in which dozens of Israelis and even Americans were killed. And that included American students Taylor Force and Ezra Schwartz. On March 8, 2016, Taylor Force, a 28-year-old West Point graduate and Vanderbilt graduate student who had fought in Iraq and Afghanistan, was stabbed to death on the promenade in Jaffa by a young Palestinian terrorist who injured 10 others, including a pregnant woman. Taylor, by all accounts, was loved, he was humble, enjoyed playing the guitar, he was an Eagle Scout and an Army veteran. His dad described him as an all-American kid who made sure that everyone around him felt good. A friend of his in Nashville said simply, he made people better. A few months earlier, another American was killed while visiting Israel on a gap year before starting university the next year. Ezra Schwartz was sitting in traffic at the Gush Etzion Junction on his way to volunteer at a conservation park built in memory of the 3 teenagers who had been kidnapped and killed by Hamas in June 2014. A terrorist opened fire with a submachine gun, killing Ezra as well as an Israeli teacher and a Palestinian from Hebron. But rather than work to punish this horrific terror, current Palestinian law instead incentivizes it. The terrorist who murdered Taylor Force and who was killed by Israeli police responding to the scene, his family will now receive payments for life at an amount 3 times the average annual salary in the West Bank. And the terrorist who killed Ezra Schwartz, who is now in Israeli prison, he will get paid more than $3,000 a month, many times higher than the average Palestinian worker. Under this payment program, the Palestinian Authority has given more than $1 billion to convicted terrorists over the past decade, more than $300 million per year. The law includes a well-defined sliding scale where the more serious the act of terrorism, the longer the prison sentence, and consequently, the higher the salary. So if you're sentenced to life in prison for a horrific terror attack, you get 4 times more money per month than if you're sentenced to just a couple of years in prison for a lesser attack. Now, it is the job of government to deliver services to its people, including welfare to those who need it most, which would include giving a grieving widow who suddenly has to take care of her family without the breadwinner what she needs. But it sends a powerful message to know that if a Palestinian man dies in a car accident, that his family gets nothing. But if that same man were to drive his car deliberately into Israeli citizens, civilians, his family will be taken care of for life. That is not welfare. That's incentive to terror. It is pay for slay, and it must end. This piece of legislation has been carefully written in order to target only those funds that directly benefit the Palestinian Authority, thereby creating real incentives for the PA to meaningfully end this practice. I congratulate the chairman and the ranking member for crafting today's amended language in a way that will pressure the PA to stop this practice without damaging our vital investments in humanitarian assistance and grassroots people-to-people programs that are essential to achieving our overall objective of peace. The pursuit of a negotiated 2-state solution requires a commitment to peace. And when the PA pays terrorists for attacks on innocent civilians, that real commitment for peace simply does not exist. I urge my colleagues to support the Taylor Force Act in order to prevent more senseless killings. Taylor Force served our country to advance and protect peace. His life was taken by terrorists, but this legislation honors his name and his memory by stopping a terrible, dangerous, abhorrent practice of paying terrorists. The PA must stop these payments. This bill will advance peace. I urge my colleagues to support it, and I yield back.